Las Vegas Raiders GM Tom Telesco was a great hire for the Raiders. He's always been good with the personnel end of things. It was his choice of coaches that got him fired by the Los Angeles Chargers. The Raiders already had head coach Antonio Pierce in place when they hired Telesco, so they didn't need him for that. All he would have to do is focus on handling the personnel. That's what he does best. As a GM, what you do as well as what you don't do sets your team up for success or failure. And evaluating Telesco over his first few months, I can see he's setting the Raiders up for success. We'll see what they do this coming year, but he's making all the right moves that are going to show up in the coming years. He's building it the right way. Telesco started his time as a Raiders GM with a bang. It all started in free agency when he caught the biggest fish in the pond. The media even gave him credit for bringing in interior defensive lineman Christian Wilkins. It was universally considered to be the best move made by any team in free agency this year. Well, it's not often one of the most dominant defensive players in the NFL that's still in his prime ends up a free agent. When you take into consideration he's going to be lining up next to Max Crosby, also one of the most dominant defensive players in the league, Telesco really did something. Man, you got to give it to Telesco. If you don't know anything else about him, you know he's going to address the trenches, and boy did he do that for the Raiders this year. The Raiders are going to have guys like edge rushers Tyree Wilson, Malcolm Kuntz, and interior defensive linemen Adam Butler and John Jenkins with Crosby and Wilkins. So the addition of Wilkins is something that's going to make this defensive line one of, if not the best in the NFL. I can't wait to see this murderer's row of a defensive line tear things up this coming year. Let's look at something Telesco didn't do now. He didn't mortgage a future for one of the top quarterbacks in this year's draft class. I don't think that's a good move for a GM that just arrived to make. That quarterback prospect isn't going to do a whole lot if the roster around him has a lot of holes in it. If the Raiders would have sold the farm to get a quarterback, they would still have a bunch of holes in that roster and no high picks to fill them the next couple of years. They wouldn't even have Brock Bowers or Jackson Powers Johnson. Bowers is a dynamic tight end they can use as a weapon in different positions, and Powers is an interior offensive lineman. Telesco needed to address the trenches on offense too. In the games the Raiders lost with Pierce in charge, they were outdone in the trenches on offense. And what if Aiden O'Connell can take the Raiders to where they want to go? The kid showed enough last year to warrant seeing him again this year. If he were to eventually go somewhere else and ball, that's a bad look for the Raiders. If he shows he's not the guy this year, well, they gave him a look and they can revisit that trade up for a quarterback next year. Another thing he didn't do was draft the right tackle in the first round like so many of the fans wanted him to do. I like Talisi Fuaga, but you don't have to draft him when you have Thayer Munford on the team already. Like I said before in previous videos, Munford would have been a franchise left tackle if he came out in 2021. He didn't because he promised his grandmother he would finish school before turning pro. And when he went back, Ohio State was badly in need of guards, so he volunteered to move there and had a bad year. That allowed the Raiders to steal him in the 7th round and move him to right tackle and battle Jermaine Luminor for the starting job there. The Luminor held Munford off in 2022, then held on to the job in 2023 despite Munford outplaying him. That wasn't until Antonio Pierce took over and started him. He put him at left tackle for Colton Miller when he was injured too, and Munford played really well. The Raiders are feeling good about him being the star on the right side going into this season. He has the size, the feet, the technical skills, and the length to be a great right tackle in this league. When you're a GM, you have a lot of decisions to make, and that was definitely the case when Telesco took over the Raiders. And like I said before, it's the moves you don't make as well as the moves you make that set you up for success or failure. Right now, at this very moment, Telesco appears to have set the Raiders up for success going forward. It's more than obvious Wilkins is going to help that defense that was first in the NFL over the second half of last season. Holding off on the quarterback allowed him to build around O'Connell to see if he's that guy. If he's not, the Raiders go into the next draft the quarterback away. That's a smart play. Thank you for watching. See you next time.